We talked not long ago, and you asked who would be preferred as future president of the United States. I said that we would work with any president, but I suppose that for us, for Russia, Biden is more preferable.
Yes, that was a translator translating for Vlad the Impaler Putin, saying in February that he and they naturally preferred Biden. He's the left-wing candidate. Who do you think the Commies are going to prefer? You know, they didn't like Ronald Reagan. They don't like Donald Trump. Communists don't like conservative Americans that believe in American strength, American power. Strengthening capitalism, power through our economic strength, our military strength. Everything that Republicans have represented for decades and decades, for generations, are the opposite of what the Commies would like to see in the United States of America. The Commies like to see Jimmy Carter in the White House. The Islamists like to see Jimmy Carter in the White House. The Commies and the Islamists like to see Barack Obama in the White House. They like to see Joe Biden in the White House. And it would be their dream come true to have Kamala Harris in the White House, to be sure. Vlad the Impaler Putin in February saying that Biden is his guy. He didn't say it just once either. He said it more than once. And this has got the usual suspects all tied up in a bunch because it doesn't help their cause. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, Vlad in February. Happy Friday to you, and welcome back. We continue to be reachable at 888-630-9625. And it's, we got the Commies over here in Communist China, where Joe Biden brought his son Hunter to do business deals with the Communist Chinese. And how many millions of dollars poured into the Biden family coffers from Communist China after Joe Biden bought his crackhead son over to Communist China and Air Force Two. The Commies are very happy with Joe Biden, whether they're Commies in China, whether they're Commies in North Korea, whether they're Commies in Cuba or Commies in Venezuela, Commies in Moscow and Vladimir Putin's Russia. Of course they love Joe Biden. They loved Barack Obama. And Jimmy Carter they rolled over. Jimmy Carter wasn't as bad as these guys. He wasn't anti-American. He was a Naval Academy graduate, a naval officer, nuclear Navy guy. And he wasn't anti-American. He was hapless and incompetent and feckless and all of those things. But he wasn't anti-American like Barack Obama. Joe Biden's just a sock puppet. He doesn't know what continent he's on most of the time. And Kamala doesn't know that there are continents. So she's starting with a very definite deficit. But Vlad saying in February and again later, more than once, that asked who he would prefer as future president of the United States. And he says, for Russia, Biden is preferable. Gosh, why would that be? Can't imagine. And then yesterday, Vlad the Impaler was asked, given that circumstances have changed a little bit, who would he like to see in the White House after the presidential election in November?
If we can name a favorite candidate, it used to be Joe Biden, but now he is not participating in the election campaign, and he recommended all his allies to support Ms. Harris. So that is what we are going to do. So he said that we should. That is why we should also do that.
You know, the American left, so much closer to being commies than they've ever been before. And obviously the Russians recognize what serves their interests, and they know that it's not Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump will bloody their nose. They didn't invade Ukraine under Donald Trump. They did invade the Crimea under Obama and Biden, then invaded the rest of Ukraine under Biden and Harris. And what did they invade again under Donald Trump? Oh, nothing. And a big part of that was Donald Trump changed the world, the global oil markets, by making America the preeminent and predominant producer of fossil fuel energy. We need a lot more nuclear energy in the United States, too. Did you see, I saw a story the other day, they've torn down 4 dams out west because Native Americans want to see the river look like it looked like 500 years ago. And the fish, the fish. And so they've torn down 4 dams. All of them produced hydroelectric energy. And the Democrats and Native Americans have seen to it that the 4th dam was torn down last week. And it's not even a news story. It's quite remarkable. But Vlad wanted Biden. Biden collapsed, imploded, was kicked to the curb by his own corrupt party as the former Democrat leader in the California Senate said that, destroying democracy, discarding 14 million primary votes, all of that good stuff. And, when the commies see that, and when they see the Democrat Party doing that, they go, they like the cut of their jib. These are people they can hang out with. And the Democrats know that the Putinites and the Xi Jinpingites are people that they can hang out with, too. They can do whatever kind of commie business that is, and they'll all get rich at the expense of billions of people. But why is that a problem? So you heard, and what else did Putin say? Why does he like Kamala so much? Is it because she's so smart and she's going to be so tough as president of the United States?
Her laugh, she's laughing. Her laugh is so fascinating. It means that everything is good, and if everything is good, it means that, for instance, if we're speaking about Joe Biden, there are so many sanctions against Russia introduced, and if everything is good with Ms. Harris, maybe she'll refrain herself from such measures, or maybe she'll change them.
And President Trump talked about this. I think he talked about it yesterday in New York at the Economic Club speech, which was full of great stuff about what he's going to do economically. Kamala Harris didn't understand anything that he said, not that she watched it, but if someone held a gun to her head and tied her to a chair and made her watch it, she wouldn't understand most of President Trump was talking about at the economic speech in New York yesterday. But President Trump saying, for Vlad the Impaler Putin, it's great that oil is $100 a barrel. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did that. Under President Trump, $40 a barrel. Good for us because cheap energy is good for us. More expensive energy is good for Putin in Russia and good for the Ayatollahs in Iran. In fact, Putin couldn't afford this war in Ukraine if the global markets hadn't driven oil up to $100 a barrel. That fills his coffers with billions and billions of dollars that he can use for all of his nefarious ends, right? Same is true of the Ayatollahs in Iran. They are funding with the help of Barack Obama and the help of Joe Biden. Joe Biden gave them $6 billion in exchange for 5 hostages, which 5 American hostages that they're holding in Iran, might incentivize Iran into taking more American hostages because it pays. Our policy always was we don't pay for hostages being held by anybody. But the Democrats have changed that and incentivized taking Americans hostage. They give them what they want. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. Now, you heard Vlad the Impaler during an interview saying that while he preferred Biden before, now he prefers Kamala because, of course, and for his purposes, probably even better. And by the way, when President Trump was in charge and we were the preeminent energy power on the planet Earth, that was good for humankind in myriad ways, including, not fueling the Islamic revolution. They are the ones that are funding and fueling the attacks on Israel, from Hezbollah in the north to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas in the Gaza, which is their 2-state solution, and the Houthis in Yemen, all being funded by Iran. Iran wouldn't be able to fund all of this so easily if it weren't for Joe Biden and, for that matter, for Barack Obama. You want to economically strangle totalitarian regimes like Putin's and the Ayatollahs and Xi Jinping and North Korea as well, for that matter. But never mind all of that. And you just heard, through a translator, Vlad saying that he finds Kamala's laugh fascinating, means that everything is good. Now, he's a propagandist. He's a communist terrorist, a murderer, a thug, a KGB goon, and the leader of Russia. They have many thousands of nuclear weapons, and the Ukrainian invasion, all that good stuff. Now, yesterday, CNN had on a Kamala spokesmodel by the name of Ian Sams. I think he was in the Biden White House. Now he's with because it's all just a big circle fest in a hot tub. Now he's with the Kamala campaign in Walls, and he's in bed with China all over the place. And all of this is fine because the New York Times is so filthy corrupt on CNN. But Kamala spokesman Ian Sams was on CNN yesterday and said, hey, but Putin said he prefers Kamala.
Vladimir Putin calls her laugh infectious, says that she is doing well and that he supports her. What do you, as the campaign, say back to Mr. Putin?
You know, I think everybody knows who dictators and bullies around the world prefer in this election. They prefer President Trump.
Yeah. And did the reporterette then say, well, wait a minute. How can you say that? Do you know what his inner thoughts are? You're familiar with his thought process. You're inside his brain. You know what he's a forget what he says. And I had this happen on my show on Newsmax several nights ago. We were talking about Putin saying that he supported Biden and Putin saying that he supports Kamala. And the liberal on the panel, it's the auto response from the entire Democrat Party, from the rank and file and from the highest levels of the Democrat Party. Oh, no, whatever he says, the opposite is true. So if he says he supports Biden, he really supports Trump. Oh, okay, you got it all figured out. You cracked the code, huh? Because that makes a lot of sense. And, the Democrats, who's the biggest liar? Is it Putin or Ian Sams? Toss a coin. Pretty amazing times we're in. All right, we haven't gone to a telephone call. I don't think we've gone to a telephone call at all, have we? Let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Matt. We have multiple Matts on the line. Let's go to Matt calling from Charleston, South Carolina. Matthew, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Hey.
Good morning, and welcome to the weekend. But I'm kind of pissed off at these other Matts. They're just copying me,
horning in on your action.
But listen, I got a question for you.
Yeah,
and I know you still got your ear to what's going on in Washington D.C. But how come Biden is running absolutely against what Kamala is doing, and she's running away from Biden? But I saw him speak yesterday, and it's like he's trying to tank her. I don't know. What are you hearing in D.C.? Because, he said yesterday that the IRA should have been renamed something else, and Kamala's trying to run away from this Green New Energy deal, and it seems to me that he's trying to bury her. What's your thoughts?
Well, I don't think Joe Biden knows what he's doing most of the time, and I think that he's mentally impaired, which is really the reason the Democrat Party kicked him to the curb and canceled 14 million Democrat Party primary election votes. Joe Biden doesn't know what he's doing, but it does see, and Kamala on the Green New Deal, for example, which she's just entirely in support of, and I believe she was the tie-breaking vote on getting that through in the United States Senate. But she lies with great alacrity, and now the polls say that the American people don't want that. So she says whatever the polls are saying because she has corrupt advisors like Ian Sams who lie about everything. Oh, no, when Putin says he supports Biden and Putin says he supports Kamala, that's how you know he supports Trump, because they think that's clever and smart or something like that. Kamala supported an open border and opposed the Border Patrol and opposed the border wall. Now she's in favor of a wall. She opposed fracking in Pennsylvania. Now she's for fracking in Pennsylvania. She supported the Green New Deal. Now she's against the Green New Deal because she's, Kamala Chameleon. She gets to morph every day with the help of a corrupt news media who never call her on it and make her the laughingstock or make her the mockery of the Democrat Party, because the American news media overwhelmingly is one with the Democrat Party. Joe Biden is another issue that has to do with his brain, which doesn't work. She's a no good, that brain of his. And there's a lot more to get to on that subject, Matt, and I'm gonna chip away at it too. You know, that football season is here. You see the game last night? It was crazy. What a wild ending. That was nuts. And Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action while watching football. The app is really simple to use. Pick 2 or more players across any sport. Pick more or less on their projection, and you could win up to 100 times your money. All the withdrawals are fast, safe, easy, secure. Not only that, but Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy app with injury insurance. If one of your players goes down in the first half, Prize Picks doesn't count it as a loss. That is wild. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code PLANT, P-L-A-N-T-E. You're going to get $50 American instantly when you play $5. That's the code PLANT on Prize Picks to get $50 credit instantly when you play $5. You know, you don't even need to win to receive a $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Yeah, Matt, I know what you're talking about. It's absolute anarchy out here. Our political environment, our political universe is exploding like a supernova. Between the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the Department of Justice, the intelligence community in the United States, and the Democrat Party, I'm going to try to help sort it out. All right, a whole lot of news to get to, a whole lot of audio to share with you, Kamala, and more. And also, a friend just sent me, Ian Sams just played a soundbite of Ian Sams. Ian Sams was in the middle of the Health and Human Services, HHS, scandal when Anthony Fauci, it was being pointed out that he arranged for funding to go to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And Ian Sams was one of the spokesmodels attacking anyone that would tell the truth about American funding under Fauci from the NIAID going to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That was a conspiracy theory until it was learned that it was true. And Ian Sams was pushing the big lie back then. The attacks on remarkable stuff, J.D. Vance, he said something about school shootings yesterday, which the Associated Press first misrepresented in a criminally corrupt, anti-journalistic, anti-truth sort of way. And then the Kamala Harris campaign jumped on board because that's what they do. They're all in bed together. It's a circle fest and a hot tub between the news media and the Democrat Party. And I've got that for you coming up as well. Now, we were talking a little while ago about, I played the great soundbite of Ronald Reagan saying, when if fascism ever comes to the United States, it will come in the name of liberalism, in the form of liberalism. And Ronald Reagan was right about pretty much everything. And we're looking at a very scary time in the United States of America when the Democratic Party, so-called, and, Elon Musk will tell you he always identified as a middle-of-the-road moderate Democrat. Robert F. Kennedy, obviously Democrat all his life, every breath he's taken, says that his father and his uncle wouldn't recognize the Democratic Party. The now former Democratic Senate leader in the state Senate in California, Romero, saying that she doesn't recognize the Democratic Party that she was a senior member of until minutes ago, really. And why is that? And talking about being the party of censorship and of global wars, endless war, I think is the turn of phrase that that Romero used. And they are not on our side of open borders, of crime waves, of shouting people down. And Kamala Harris in 2019, demonstrating her fealty to the party, 2019 was, and President Trump was president of the United States at the time, when Kamala Harris used a bunch of very totalitarian words, fascistic words. And again, Benito Mussolini describing fascism as a merger of state and corporate power, social media, information dominance, controlling the message, key to any authoritarian regime. It's why they don't allow a free press. We allow free press, and our press has elected to be corrupt in so many instances. But here's Kamala Harris advocating corruption and authoritarianism in 2019 while President Trump was president of the United States and living in the White House, and she wanted him banned from Twitter.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
And that has to stop. That has to stop. First of all, as has been pointed out, she's referring to President Trump's free speech as a privilege. He's the president of the United States. He has a Twitter account and a massive Twitter following, and as he did then. And she is using the language of Putin and Xi Jinping and the Ayatollahs in this extraordinary clip of video. He has lost his privileges? What are those privileges? What privileges are those? His privilege, not right, to free speech? His privilege to express himself? And again, these tin pot little dim-witted fascists would strip the president of the United States of his free speech, of his right, not privilege, to free speech. And you can be sure that they would strip everyone else of their right to free speech if and when they can strip the president of the United States of his right to free speech. Isn't that amazing? Now, this left-wing fake media outfit called the Poynter Institute, which is staffed by mostly former network news reporters and producers and executives and big-time newspaper reporters and executives. And the so-called Poynter Institute this morning, late last night perhaps, Kamala Harris did not say she would shut down X if elected. Social media users are misleadingly, see, now you got to ban anything that is misleadingly being shared on social media. And the Poynter Institute is another left-wing front group. Social media users are misleadingly sharing an excerpt of comments Harris made years ago, I just played it for you, about Donald Trump's Twitter presence. Now, the left-wing crooks, frauds, Sophia Ahmed at the Poynter Institute, supposed to be a media watchdog of sorts. It's just another left-wing front group. Social media users are misleadingly sharing an excerpt of comments made by Vice President Kamala Harris made years ago about former President Donald Trump's Twitter presence. An Instagram user shared the video September 3rd of Harris speaking with the caption, Kamala Harris said she'd shut down X if elected. Now, that's not actually what she said. She just shut down free speech of the President of the United States. And the expert shared on Instagram, Kamala Harris says, he has lost his privileges and should be taken down, talking about President Trump. Notice that at the Poynter Institute, they haven't, listen, that's the whole point. If you'll strip the President of the United States of his free speech, then the rest of us are toast, right? I don't think Kamala Harris is smart enough to know how nefarious what she's saying is. I really don't. He's lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. The Twitter account of the President of the United States is what she's talking about. And the bottom line is that you can't say you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. Well, so who says? Whose rules are we talking about here? The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed by whom? On these social media sites to understand their power. What does that even mean? They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of, listen to this, oversight or regulation. So Kamala Harris is advocating government oversight and regulation of Twitter and Facebook, and by extension of free speech. And that has to stop, she said. Now, when she's just a 2019 idiot, that's fine. The Democrats want to make her she's already vice president. The Democrats want to, and the media, but I repeat myself, want to make her president of the United States.
Your call for Twitter to suspend the account of President Trump. Why was that important?
What's important about it is this, Jake. What Donald Trump says on Twitter impacts people's perceptions about what they should and should not do. And we're talking about a private corporation, Twitter, that has terms of use. And as far as I'm concerned, and I think most people would say, including members of Congress who he has threatened, that he has lost his privileges and it should be taken down.
He has lost his privileges. And I'm sorry, are you the executive in charge of Twitter? Talking to Jake Tapper at CNN, who, of course, doesn't push back, doesn't challenge her, doesn't stand strong for the First Amendment and for free speech. Jake Tapper, a former Democrat Capitol Hill staffer for the Democrat member of Congress whose son married Chelsea Clinton, became a journalist because he wrote an article about his date with Monica Lewinsky, and that's what led to his fabulous media career. The Post was flagged as part of Meta's efforts to combat false news and misinformation on its news feed. Now, that I gotta tell you, these people are so close to being fascist, communist. What's the difference? I love to tell the story about one of the great guests we had on one of our sea cruises several years ago, and I was talking to this great man and a smart man, and his grandmother came to the United States from Poland, where she lived for several years under Nazi rule when the Nazis invaded Poland, and then the Soviet Union invaded Poland and quote-unquote liberated Poland, and they took down the Nazi flag and raised the Soviet flag. And this man asked his grandmother what was the difference between living under the Nazis and living under the Soviets. And the grandmother paused and thought and said, the flag. That was the difference between living under the Nazis and living under the Soviets. It's totalitarianism. It's authoritarianism. It is, the left is coming for your rights. And Kamala Harris, again, I think is not smart enough to know the implications of the things that she's saying. And Jake Tapper is not a serious enough journalist to understand the seriousness and the gravity of what she was saying either. Isn't that amazing? All right, let's grab a phone call. Michael, let's go to Matt. Let's go to Matt number 2. This Matthew calling from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Matthew, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Well, it's a privilege, and thank you for taking my call, Chris. You have such incredible insight. I love your program. You're the number one program in my choices.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's well-deserved. Yesterday, I was listening to Charlie Kirk's program, and he was playing an interview he did with Tucker Carlson. And it was a great interview, what I heard. And part of what Tucker said was something along the line of he doesn't like it when people focus on World War II because they think of World War II and we defeated Hitler, so it kind of naturally progresses to the idea that we defeated fascism. We defeated that Nazi mentality. And he said it wasn't defeated. And he implied that we're still dealing with it today. And Kamala Harris is, oh my gosh, Exhibit 1. And you say it so much that they don't care what you do as long as it's mandatory, and what they can't make mandatory, they want to outlaw. And Obama also said it. He has a pen and a telephone. These guys, and Joe Biden has done it. They think the Constitution, I don't know what they think of that, but they think we can just write into and to dictate to the American people what they think is good for us. And the Constitution means nothing to these people. They're not guided by that or God or anything else. And that's the other thing you made me think of when Kamala said what she said, the privilege of the free speech. She thinks the government gives free speech. It comes from God. It's one of our inalienable rights. And they don't know anything about inalienable rights. They think that it comes from government, apparently. Thank you for your program, Chris. I really love it.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate everything you said. And Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson, and there are a lot of us that are fighting for the truth. Truth, justice, and the American way. And they even took the American way off of the slogan for Superman because Democrats took over at Marvel Comics. And I had to check with Michael Piercy on which comic book it was. But you're 100% right, and Tucker Carlson is, of course, right. We smashed fascism in Europe thanks to a man that went on to become a Republican president, Dwight Eisenhower, and gave us the interstate highway system, among other things, after World War II, and moved a Democrat governor out of the schoolhouse door, blocking black kids from coming in, Orville Faubus at Central High in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. But fascism and communism, again, very little daylight between fascism and communism. The political spectrum is a circle, not a bar that goes from left to right. The extreme left and the extreme right are inseparable and indistinguishable from one another. And I got to say, Matt, I talk frequently about the fact that we came to the incorrect conclusion when the Soviet Union collapsed that we had defeated communism. We had not. They morphed. They march on. They goose step on. And the Nazis, Nazism, fascism, totalitarianism, again, Ronald Reagan describing it correctly. You allow industry and business to stay in existence as long as they serve the interests of the state and the party. It's always the party because it becomes one man, one vote, one time, a system of party rule no matter what. And, we didn't, fascism lives on in its own form. And certainly communism lives on, and Bernie Sanders, and on college campuses and in the Democrat Party. And they are all godless. That's one of the key elements. And natural law is what you're talking about there, Matthew, that guarantees us our rights and not the state. That's the whole idea of inalienable rights and natural law. But the Democrats crush that. They roll over it with a tank. And Ronald Reagan, again, had it right so many times.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
And we're living right now in a time, there is a generations alive right now, where those freedoms are in danger, in grave danger. And it's true. It's not inherited in the bloodstream. It must be fought for. It must be preserved. And it's under assault now from inside the United States because of the Democrat Party, which is the left, the global left. And our freedoms are under assault as never before, and that's not hyperbole, that's not rhetoric. That's well-established fact at this point. And I hope you know that to be true. There's an election this year. So many extraordinary things to talk about in the world and in our country. I want to play a little Donald Trump for you coming up. But first, I think I should go back to the telephones. Let's go to, we don't have a Matt standing by. Let's go to Dave. Let's go to Dave. Dave is here from Silver Spring, Maryland. Dave, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Dave.
We often talk about how whatever the Democrats say, the opposite is the truth, and that's an accepted fact. We know that. But the communism and socialism, which is where the modern Democrat lives, it started with the biggest lie of all, and that is that they would benefit far more people. A socialist or a communist society would benefit far more people. But the truth is just the opposite. In communism and socialism, only a very, very, very few, small minority at the top benefit from it. Everybody else is a slave or a peasant or a serf, whatever you want to call them. So nobody would naturally want that life for themselves and their children. Therefore, it needs to be forced down their throat, which is where the tyranny comes in. And the fascism and all the rest of it are all just different words for the same thing. They have to force their system that will benefit a very few of them at the top down our throats. And so we, unfortunately, have been so poorly educated and lied to all our lives that, for instance, we believe liberalism is the opposite of conservatism, and it's not. Conservatism is the opposite of tyranny. Liberalism is the opposite of traditional.
You are very well prepared. That was brilliant. You should have your own show. Thank you for that.